Hounds. Sincere welcome to all of you Hounds, our guest speaker and alumnus, the Honourable Scotty McClellan and his wife, Joanne. Our President, Rob Palmerine, members of our board, fellow staff members, alumni, parents and friends of Notre Dame. For any of you I have not met, my name is Robert Ducharme. I'm the alumni coordinator for the college. I am very proud to welcome you all here for this very, very special event and the start of our alumni reunion weekend. We're in for a very special time together this afternoon. This is an exciting day for all of us, the Notre Dame community. Today we honor our founder, Monsignor Father Athol Murray. To each of us, students, alumni, staff, and friends of Notre Dame, Pere continues to influence to us each day, telling us that we can change the world. The vision he had for Notre Dame and each of us holds as true in 2019 as it did in 1927 when he first came to Wilcox. Pere continues to push us to dream greatly, act greatly, and do it in our own unique way so that we can be extraordinary people we each have the potential to be. And if being those people was only as easy as it was for me just to say. Today we will award for the 5th time the Pere Father Murray Award. The recipient, The recipient of this award is someone who exemplifies the ideals of Pere each and every day, making the lives of those around them better. It is now my pleasure, before we move on to the announcement of the award, it's now my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker from the Notre Dame Arts Class of '59, the Honourable Scotty McClellan. Born in Port Arthur, Ontario in 1938, now known as Thunder Bay, married to his lovely wife Joanne for 54 years. Together they have 2 sons and 1 daughter. One son is a former Junior A Hound. Raised in Geraldton, Ontario, headed off to Notre Dame in 1952 to complete 4 years of high school and then 3 years in Notre Dame's art program before graduating to explore the world beyond Wilcox in 1959. Soon after graduation, an unfortunate workplace accident forced a move back to Northern Ontario, where while working in the mining industry, Scotty, as his fellow Hounds know him, was inspired to enter Dalhousie University in Halifax and then graduate from law school there in 1963, before eventually moving back to Regina to be admitted to the Saskatchewan Bar in 1965, establishing a law firm, practicing corporate and commercial law up to 1983, before being appointed by the Justice Minister of Canada to the Queen's Bench. Scotty was instrumental in helping Saskatchewan become one of the first provinces, if not the first, to begin using pretrial conferences, where Scotty's skills were used, or Scotty's skills, I would say, helped both parties to reach settlements. Scotty's skills to help both parties reach settlements was revered among lawyers. Scotty and Joanne now live in Regina, spend their winters in Scottsdale, Arizona. After retiring from his 30-year post as a federal court judge in 2013. Please put your hands together and welcome our guest speaker, the Honourable Scotty McClellan.
Hi, guys. I arrived in Wilcox as a 14-year-old, wet behind the ears, I had no idea of what I was going to do with my life. I came here because I really didn't get along with the priests and nuns in Northern Ontario. And then I met Father Athol Murray. He was the first ecumenical priest I ever met, and what an inspiration. I had no idea that I would spend the next 7 years of my life here in Wilcox. He was the most dynamic person I'd ever met in my life. As Bob said, he arrived here in Wilcox in 1927 with undying faith in God and unimaginable tenacity to start a school. That was in the depths of the Depression. This was a dust bowl. And without him, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't have this school. He was probably the most dynamic speaker I ever heard. He was, as I said earlier, the most ecumenical priest. I'd never met anybody like him. He had a friend who was the, I think, United Church minister. I can't remember if it was United Church or Anglican, but there was a Protestant church here in Wilcox in those days. And we would come to Mass, and then we would go over to Varsity to have lunch. Pere would sit up at the front table. He'd look around, he'd count heads, and then he'd say, "You Protestants, why in the hell are you here? You have a church, get over there." Now, he didn't appreciate, like a lot of my friends were Protestants, they all wanted to come to Mass, not because they wanted to be Catholics, because they wanted to hear his sermon. His sermons were so thoughtful and thought-provoking that, they came every Sunday. Now, I was in grade 10 or 11, I can't remember which, and my father died. So I took the train back to Northern Ontario, went to the funeral, and then I came back, and Pere got me aside, said, I'm very sorry to hear you lost your father, but I want you to know, I'll be your father now. And said, I want you to tell your mother, I know she has no pension, no source of income, that you don't have to worry anymore about paying any fees. Now, I've often thought, when I was a trial judge, if somebody was unhappy with any of my decisions, they could appeal them to the Court of Appeal. And I used to think, thank God Pere isn't alive. I'd had a second Court of Appeal because he was the most outspoken conservative. Now, Newfie, you wouldn't appreciate that, being a liberal from Newfoundland. And he could not stand socialism in any form. There was a great debate when Medicare was first introduced here in Saskatchewan. And Pere, being the conservative, he took the side of the doctors in this debate. Rumor had it that the Archbishop finally sent him to New York just because he was so vocal. But he we could sit up in Lane Hall, and John Diefenbaker was the Prime Minister at that time, and we'd hear Pere on the phone. I want to speak to the Prime Minister. And he could get through. And you'd hear, God damn it, John, why did you do that? That's not good for this country. And he would just tear strips off of the Prime Minister. Now, years later, we had a dinner at the Connexus Arts Center in Regina to honor Pere. And one of the guest speakers was Alan Blakeney. Now, for some of you who may not know, he was, I think maybe he was the health minister at the time Medicare was introduced. And at the time he was speaking, he was the premier of Saskatchewan. So I sat in this dinner, and I was waiting for Blakeney. And I thought, now this might be very interesting, to hear what Alan has to say. So he got up and he said, a lot of people will be very surprised. But Father Murray and I had a great relationship. He said, he was the type of person and priest who could hate the sin, but still love the sinner. And that was Pere. When I was in third year arts, one of our friends in third year got into a little trouble, and there was a priest by the name of Father Malloy who wanted to kick him out of Notre Dame. He said, he's got to go. So we decided, well, we'll have a strike. We just won't go to classes. So Pere kept telling people he wanted to see me. He blamed me for leading this strike. So I was scared spitless, to quite be honest. Thought this might end my university career. So I had all of my friends go in to see Pere to try and buffer before I knew I'd have to go in sometime. And the last one I sent in is here today. It was Bill Liskowicz. Bill was the president of the Students' Council, so I said, Bill, would you please go in and see Pere? So he did. He came out, and I saw him later, and I said, Bill, how did it go? He said, Scotty, I couldn't get a word in edgewise. He wants you. So I worked up my nerve, went and knocked on his door, said, come in. I went in, he said, oh, it's you. He said, sit down. Let's have a drink. A lot of water's gone under the bridge in the last few days. He said, I want you to know, the guy's name was Patty. I'm not going to kick him out of this college. So that was the end of that. And he was the most loyal, and he demanded loyalty of all the students to Notre Dame. Bob mentioned the accident I had. I was working, after I left in 1959, I was working on a pipeline company in Winnipeg. And I was in the trench one day, and it caved in and broke my pelvis. So they took me to the St. Boniface Hospital. And when I was there, I got a letter from Pere. Most wonderful letter to support me, to offer his condolences. He was loyal. When I was practicing law, there was a young hound who got himself in trouble and was charged. So I had one of the junior lawyers go to provincial court to defend this kid. Well, the guy was convicted. Next thing I knew, I had a phone call from Pere. Why in the hell did you send a young lawyer to go to defend that kid? That was what you were supposed to do. So I said, well, Pere, we can appeal. So I appealed, and the kid was still convicted. But I satisfied Pere. Now, he had two sayings that we used to hear from him all the time. He who does what in him lies, God will not deny his grace. Every life is insignificant until you yourself make it great. And those stuck with me for years and years, and they still do. He loved the Greeks. If any of you had ever talked to Pere, he loved to talk about Plato, Socrates, Aristotle. He was a Renaissance man. I can remember when I finally ended up on a holiday in Athens, and I could feel, it was just a thrill to go up to the Acropolis, because I'd heard him so many times talk about these philosophers. But he was unpredictable. I remember, and it's quite appropriate now, because it was a Victoria Day. There were a bunch of us in Regina with Pere, and we went to the Balmoral Cafe. We're all sitting around on stools. And Pere all of a sudden stands up, says, "You Canadians, you think this is a holiday? You don't even know what the hell the day is. It's the Queen's birthday. So come on, guys, come on, gang, let's sing God Save the Queen." And then we had to sit there. I wanted to fall off the stool, but I couldn't. And so that was the type of person he was. Now, when I talk about loyalty, the life we had back then was, by today's standards, very Spartan. And he used to talk about adversity, saying, God, kids, adversity is going to build your character. And so he made us appreciate what we had. And his philosophy was, God will provide what you need. Not what you want, but what you need. And I remember one day sitting down for a meal at Varsity, and that day the meal was a scoop of potatoes and a dab of ketchup. And I wanted to go and say, Pere, I think you should pray a little harder. You know. Now, life in the shacks. We had the teehee, the lorry, those little shacks. We became so close. It was like everybody was your brother. My wife and I were in Scottsdale one year, and we were going to drive to California. And to do that, we went through Yuma. And I heard one of the guys who wintered in Yuma was a fellow named Bob Marshall. I hadn't seen him for 50 years. So on our way over to California, we stopped in Yuma, and I looked him up. And my wife couldn't believe it. She said, it was like you had seen each other last week, not 50 years. I mean, that was the atmosphere. It was loyalty, and loyalty to each other. Now, another thing we had to do, when we left Wilcox, we had to get permission from Pere. And I can remember every Easter, somebody'd go in to ask for permission to leave the college. And the answer would be, God damn it, kid, this is not a holiday, it's holy days. And so you stay here and you go to church. Now, when I heard about that accident last April with the Humboldt hockey team, made me think back to the days that we drove around in that doghouse. You've seen that doghouse and what it was like. And to stay warm, we used to have a fire in there. And if that had ever rolled or been in an accident, every one of us would have been dead. So I know Pere would say, God looked after you, fellas. He looked after you. Now, I have been a member of a STEP program for the last 44 years. The first person who ever mentioned to me that maybe I had a problem with alcohol was Pere. I was in Lane Hall one day. He came out of his office. He said, Ian, do you have some Irish blood in you? I said, Dad, Pere, my mother was a Fraser. I'm just nothing but Scottish. I said, why do you ask? He said, because when you drink, you're like a goddamn Irishman. So when I did join that 12-step program, I really wanted to tell him, because he was still alive, say, Pere, took a lot of years, but I got the message. But I was really very concerned about my anonymity at that time. And I thought, if I go and tell Pere that, I might as well buy a front page ad in the Leader Post, because he never kept a secret if he thought it could help somebody. So, you know, I said to Bill Liskowitz, you know, I'd really like to know what Pere would say if he thought I was going to be up at the pulpit in the church, because he was often calling me a mucker. That was one of his favorite terms. You goddamn mucker. So I really would like to say, I understand there are 72 students graduating from grade 12. So I'd like to wish you the best in your future endeavors. And you have the basic now, after your years here at Notre Dame, to do and to be what you want to be. You have it within you, and that was the message Pere was trying to get across, is that you have the power as an individual to be the best you can be, not necessarily the best hockey player ever, but the best you can be. There's only one Connor McDavid now. So I knew when I was off track, my belly button told me I wasn't being the best person I could be. You know, my role is to be the best husband, best father, and my wife, I know, keeps waiting for me to be the best husband. So I really would like to say, in conclusion, I have so much gratitude for Notre Dame and the life I've had because of my experiences here, that I can't adequately express the gratitude, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Your Honor, Ian, Miss Scotty, we'd like to thank you on behalf of your fellow Hounds for sharing some stories about Pere.
Please accept this gift on behalf of all of us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scotty. Now, on behalf of all alumni and friends of Notre Dame, I'd like to ask the following nominees for this year's Pere Award to please stand up and remain standing as we announce this year's recipient. I'd also like to ask that our guest speaker, Ian, Scotty, and President Rob Palmerine, please come up to the front to help us present this award. So, nominees, again, please remain standing after your name has been announced, and continue to remain standing as we announce the winner. This year, to the award recipient, when your name is announced, we ask you to please come up to the front, and we're going to try something a bit different this year. We're going to ask you to please say a few words in acceptance of the award. So, without any further ado, the nominees for the 2019 Pere Athol Murray Award are as follows: Zach Winslow, Nolan Renwick, Jesse Garchinsky, Carly Pattenode, Eric Herman, Shane Collins, Ruben Cooper, Sophie Young, Jillian Smith, and Mason Douglas. The recipient of this year's Pere Athol Murray Award is an outstanding young hound that is deserving of the Father Athol Murray Award due to his dedication in school and sports, his high level of respect towards his peers, teachers, and coaches, as well as his strong leadership qualities. He's a man who has shown up to class every day with a positive attitude and a level of respect that is unmatched by most of his peers. He is a leader in the classroom, as others look to him not only for his intellect, but also his actions. He exemplifies what it means to be the Notre Dame man. He has been consistent with these strong values throughout his time at the college. He exemplifies everything we are about and everything our students want to be. He is a caring person that gives back to his community, and his peers look up to him in all aspects of life. He is an honor roll student every semester. He is a leader on campus. He has been a leader on every team that he has played for, and he always does the right thing, as far as we know. We like to define character as someone who does the right thing, no matter who's watching, and that's what this man does. I'd proudly like to call forward from the class of 2019, Nolan Renwick. right in front of them. Hardware. And this check. Yeah. A nice check from the alumni.
I think I got to give a shout out. I told Fergie I'd give him a shout out, so Keegan back there. No, I just want to say thanks, especially to all the students. Whether you guys know it or not, you guys are all part of my family. You guys are my brothers, sisters, and these memories we've made, friendships we've made, I'll keep them with me forever. And I know we got 5 or 6 weeks left, and once that time comes, I'm going to miss you guys a lot. And thanks to the staff as well for helping me lead throughout all these years, all my coaches, teachers. We've had a pretty good group. I've had a lot of fun over these 4 years, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, so thank you all.
Well done, Nolan. Oh, he's a little taller than me. Congratulations, Nolan, well deserved. An extra special thank you to Tom Shoebridge, who could not be here today, and our Pere Award Committee for organizing today's event. Nominees, if you could please join us at the front for a photo before you leave. All of you. And alumni and friends, please join us at the archives for a wine and cheese. Grade 12s, please note that the dinner begins at 5, so we need you at varsity by 5, and this is a formal event. And you're all dismissed. Thank you very much.